Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Inept General bringing you some Total War Warhammer Legendary Lord lore, and today we are going to be focusing on Eltharion the Grim. Now, most of this video is taken from a video I did a little while ago looking at the likely legendary lords that were going to appear in Total War Warhammer. So if you've seen that video, feel free to give this one a miss, but if you haven't, sit back and enjoy the tale of Eltharion the Grim. Eltharion was a kind of known hero amongst the elves, and he was known for leading an excursion to Naggaroth that was at first extremely successful. They started to win victories against the Dark Elves in the Dark Elves' homeland and began to kind of sneak around, causing all kinds of havoc, setting ambushes, really leading a very successful host around Naggaroth. And at one point, Eltharion got maybe, let's say, a bit big-headed, perhaps, and decided to attack the capital city of Naggaroth. And he and his warriors, dressed as Dark Elves, got past the gates, attacked the gate guards, and opened the gates for the waiting army of High Elves. Now, the High Elves were eventually fought back after Eltharion was injured by a Dark Elf assassin with a poison blade, and the High Elf army retreated back to Ulthuan. Once they got back to Ulthuan and the still poisoned Eltharion, who was still suffering dreadfully, got back to Tor Yvresse, they found that their own home province was under siege by Greenskin War, and this was the War of Grom the Paunch, the very famous gobbo who ate a troll and became an enormous gobbo. And if you'd like to hear more about Grom the Paunch's entire campaign, do check the top right hand corner now. But Grom was sieging the homelands of Eltharion, and Eltharion's father had gone out to try and stop this war. But the war was just enormous. The High Elves had never seen anything like this, a greenskin war on their own lands, and of such enormous and imposing size as well, that although any High Elf could match a gobbo in combat easily, the gobbos just swarmed over them like locusts, just annihilating army after army, and raiding and pillaging their lands. Eltharion's father, Murian, marched out against Grom the Paunch, and he was promptly defeated and killed. At the time, Eltharion was unaware of this because no one could really communicate with him. He was just so feverish and non-comprehensible, just in the wraps of this poison and what he had done, that he wasn't really aware of the world around him and what was going on. And then suddenly to Eltharion appeared a vision, and it was his father who was bearing all the scars and the wounds of battle. And he spoke to his son and explained the situation. He said, this guy Grom the Paunch has come. He has his lieutenant, the shaman Blacktooth, who is destroying the Waystones, which protect us against chaos magic here in Ulthuan. And there's more chaos magic coming to our homeland territory, and it's affecting and it's corrupting the land. You have to put a stop to Grom the Paunch and his evil wizard buddy. And Eltharion suddenly wakes up from his feverish dream to find that where his father had been standing in his dream was the old ancestral blade of his family, Fangsword, and he picked it up and vowed to end the War of Grom. At this point, Grom had kind of marched through the countryside of Yvresse and had destroyed many, many Waystones, so much so that in fact it's believed if he destroys one more, the entirety of the vortex will collapse and chaos will be unleashed upon the world once more. And the last Waystone he wants to destroy is underneath the capital of the region. So Grom and his lieutenant Blacktooth are marching. An army tries to intercept them, led by Eltharion's younger brother, and he is cut down as well. So at this point, Grom has killed Eltharion's father and his younger brother. So Grom continues his march, and for 3 days and 3 nights, he lays absolute wreckage upon the city. The greenskin catapults are firing huge boulders into the city. Doom divers are raining down. Vast seas of gobbos are just waiting to burst into the gates, and eventually the gates do fall under this incessant and overwhelming power of this greenskin war, and they begin to storm the streets. All appears to be lost. The Waystone seems like it's going to be destroyed. Blacktooth, the greenskin mage, is over the city, just delighting in his victory and how powerful he's become with the destruction of the Waystones, obviously being guided by the Chaos forces. And then out of the kind of glint of his eye, Blacktooth just sees something darting towards him, and in a last gasp attempt to try and defend himself, starts to send some ethereal green fists towards the aggressor, but before he knows it, whoosh, his head is parted from his shoulders, and streaming past him on his griffin Stormwing is Eltharion, who has decapitated the greenskin mage. Just as his troops land on boats into the capital of the city and begin to fight off Groms War. Grom tries to rally his troops, but in the end he is a gobbo at heart and gives up and runs away into the hills of the area. Now, Grom hasn't been seen since that day, and that was a very long time ago. Eltharion then took up a quest of making sure that no greenskin war ever threatened his beloved homeland again, and took an elven army to the Badlands and began to kill any greenskin he could find. After a while, he won victory after victory, but he began to realize that, not understanding greenskin's psychology particularly well, that by killing all these war bosses, he was just encouraging more wars to pick up, gather troops, and march towards the pointy heads because they were a good bloody fight. So that's what the greenskins were doing. Upon realizing what was going on and that he was just encouraging more violence on the greenskins' part, he took his army and went home and decided to defend off one from there from any kind of greenskin invasion. Now, Eltharion is one of the few characters, and the only one that's popping to my mind right now, there may be others, but the only one popping straight into my head, that actually has a rule on the tabletop against a single other character, who is Grom the Paunch. Eltharion on the tabletop hates Grom, determined to see Grom dead above all others. So we mentioned his mount already. He has a griffin, Stormfang. He has his ancestral sword, the Fang Sword, which does magic damage, and no armor saves can be made against it on the tabletop, essentially meaning it should be very armor piercing in Total War Warhammer 2. He also has the Helm of Yvresse, which is the ceremonial helm given to the wardens, which he was selected to be warden of the province after he saved it from Grom the Paunch. And so he was awarded this crown, this helm even, and it's a magical armor. It gives him better armor and gives him a ward save as well of 33%. His last item is the Talisman of Hoeth, which is a medallion which essentially allows to wear a magic resistance, and it makes you a wizard. So Eltharion is really a fighter, but this medallion makes him a low-level wizard and gives him the magical knowledge of its previous owner, which allows him to use magic. Now, this would essentially allow Eltharion to have a couple of spells on the tabletop, so maybe he has a very limited magical upgrade pool, but he's really able to use magic from all 8 laws of magic found in the Total War Warhammer world. But he's a very low-level wizard, so that would limit the number of spells you had on the tabletop, but we haven't really had a limiting factor in terms of numbers of spells in Total War Warhammer. So what I see Creative Assembly doing in this case is maybe just giving him 2 or 3, or maybe at most 4 spells, or maybe 4 slots for spells and making them multiple choice. You can kind of pick one or the other and just give you an upgrade. So 4 slots with 1 powerful spell from each lore of magic, and that's what the Talisman of Hoeth allows him to do. So an interesting kind of melee-focused wizard. And that's about it for Eltharion, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you enjoyed that video, and as always, a big thank you for watching, and I hope to catch you all on the next one. Okay guys, bye.